In this lesson, I will present 5 ways how a person can respond to a conflict and relate these strategies to learning groups. Awareness about these different options can help us as educators to consciously decide on the most appropriate strategy. The following ideas are based upon the work of Kenneth Thomas and Roscommon, who developed a model of 5 different conflict modes. In every conflict situation, a person has the option to compete, to avoid, to accommodate, to compromise, or to collaborate. Competing is useful for people who are focused on getting it all. Winning is most important, and the relationship with the other side doesn't matter much. Such an attitude might be appropriate if you are convinced that you are right, if there is limited time, or if winning is most important, for example, in a game or in a bargaining situation. Competing is usually not a good strategy in learning groups, because it will result in a division into winners and losers. And it promotes black and white thinking, instead of widening perspectives and opening to other views. In order to limit the potential harm done when applying this strategy, it is important to separate the person from the matter. You can be tough on the item being negotiated or discussed while still treating the other person respectfully. Next up is avoidance. People can choose to avoid a conflict for different reasons. Maybe the issue at hand is of limited interest to them, they think it is not the right time to address it, or they want to pull out of a threatening situation. In teams and groups, conflict avoidance often is an indicator for a lack of mutual trust and cohesiveness, which prevents open communication among participants. For a group to evolve, it is important that differing views are put into the open and participants learn to deal with diversity. So, on the one hand, avoidance helps to retain peace and harmony, but at the same time, it prevents the group to develop further and become truly effective. Accommodating takes place when people give in into the wishes or demands of the other side. Usually, this occurs when a person considers it more important to maintain positive relationships with the other person than to defend his or her own position. Another reason might be that someone has realized his mistake and acknowledges that the other person is right on the issue at hand. As with avoidance, accommodating helps to sidestep potential conflicts, but it does not contribute to the group's potential to deal with diversity. Yes, but is an interesting variation to avoidance. This strategy can be applied in situations where it is important to gain a favorable outcome, and I am prepared to swallow my pride. It consists of 2 parts. First, I have to admit my fault, even if I am not guilty. Second, I ask the other side to help find a solution. An example. During a seminar, a participant criticizes the trainer for not giving the group enough time for sharing their experiences. Though the trainer feels that this is an unfair criticism, he responds, "Sorry for that. Do you have a proposal how we could better balance the curriculum content with the participants' desire to share their experiences?" Yes, but can be a useful strategy, for example, when dealing with an unhappy client or if one needs to get something from a person in power. However, it should be used very carefully if one values the relationship with the other person. In this instance, it is better to analyze the situation together in order to understand why the perceptions differ. Let's move to compromising. When compromising, each side gives up parts of their objectives to reach a common agreement. The outcome seems fair to both sides, but nobody is truly happy about it. Compromising is an appropriate strategy to overcome a blockage, to move forward in a conflict, or to save energy or time. One should, however, remember that a compromise is not the best possible outcome. It should always be seen as a means rather than an objective in itself. Most techniques for reaching a compromise are based upon comparing and voting. An interesting alternative to traditional voting methods is systemic consenting, systemisches Konsensieren in German. In spite of the method's name, it is actually quite easy to implement. Here, instead of voting for one most favored solution, people express their level of resistance for each possible solution. 0 if they have no resistance to it, 10 if they have complete resistance to it. The solution to which participants in total have the least level of resistance is the way to go forward. Look up the internet for systemic consenting to get examples and more detailed descriptions on using this method. Another possible strategy in a conflict is collaboration. Here, the objective is to find a solution that is supported by everybody. In order to get to a win-win outcome, the involved sides have to focus on their underlying needs instead of defending their starting positions. The basic idea is to transform a conflict into a problem. In a conflict, both sides consider the other side to be opponents, each defending his interests and trying to gain greater benefits for himself. A preferable situation is that both sides see each other as allies who try to find a solution that addresses the needs of everybody. In this picture, both sides sit on the same side of the table and fight the problem together instead of fighting each other. The benefits of collaboration are obvious, but for it to happen, the involved parties need a high degree of commitment. An extremely powerful strategy for needs-based conflict resolution is nonviolent communication, which I talk about in a separate lesson. To sum up, there is not one right response to a conflict. Each of the 5 strategies has its benefits in certain situations. However, only compromising and collaborating will strengthen openness and cooperation in learning groups. As adult educators, we should therefore be familiar with moderation techniques and methods to implement these strategies.